World of Warcraft has seen some very dark times. Content droughts, design fiascos, scandals, systems too complex for their own good, and radio silence as community engagement hits an all-time low. And now Final Fantasy XIV and other competitors are closing in. But I don't think this has to be the end of the story for World of Warcraft. What World of Warcraft needs is simpler systems, more content, better community engagement so that the dev teams know what will get players excited to pick up World of Warcraft again. To that end, I have invented a system of my own, a simple system that gives players huge amounts of customization, that lets developers add awesome and useful abilities without fear of spellbar bloat, giving players the ability to upgrade 3 of their spells to be something new. I'm cooking up concepts for 7 of these upgrade spells for every spec. Some of them are returning favorites, some of them are brand new. Either way, Blizzard has my express permission to use every concept I post about in these videos in the comments or on the forums. And if the Blizzard developers are too pressed for time to engage with the community, then I will. I'll get the feedback on this concept, and even if they don't take a single one of my ideas, they'll know what the players want, and most importantly, why. And they can use that to make the game better, because I want this game better. I want WoW to last another decade. I have mained a Holy Paladin since 2005, and I have to say, looking at Restoration's kit made me jealous. Seriously, Holy Paladins have always had a pretty limited kit of healing abilities compared to other classes. But I shouldn't be talking about my gripes. This video is about what I thought was a good idea for the first iteration of the spread of upgrades for Restoration Shaman. Of course, Shaman and Paladins are both hybrid classes, which made me lean a bit in the direction of giving some abilities that weren't heals, which really makes me wonder if I'd done goofed. Well, the sooner I get around to showing what upgrades I have in Iteration 1, the sooner you can tell me what to do to make Iteration 2 better, so let's dive in. First, we have Wandering Shower, an upgrade to Healing Rain. You cast it on a single ally, and that ally is guaranteed to receive healing ticks from Healing Rain. Also, the area of effect will follow that ally and heal nearby injured friendly targets. Number 2, Tributary, an upgrade for Chain Heal that heals for noticeably more, jumps an additional time, is more mana efficient, and the range between jumps can be up to 40 yards. However, it has a 7.5 second cooldown, reducible by haste. Third, we have Spirit Walker's Determination, an upgrade for Spirit Walker's Grace. It no longer allows you to cast while moving, but your healing is boosted by 30% for a short time instead. Fourth, we have Telluric Shield, an upgrade for Earth Shield that has fewer charges and only boosts your healing on the target by 15%, but it can be cast on up to 2 targets at a time. Next, we have Water Shock, an upgrade for Frost Shock. It deals more damage than Frost Shock does not slow the target, but it can also be cast on allies to heal them and is extremely mana efficient. Sixth, we have Conductive Bolt, an upgrade for Lightning Bolt that deals Frost Storm damage, which is a blend of Frost and Nature damage. It also heals all allies with any of the Healing Rain, Wandering Shower, Earth Shield, Telluric Shield, or Riptide heal over time effects, and it heals for a percentage of the damage done. Finally, we have Lightning Bolt Volley, which is an upgrade for Chain Lightning that hits multiple targets for less damage than Chain Lightning would deal to an initial target, and it can hit more targets than Chain Lightning would hit. Now for the thinking. I'd like to start by saying that Restoration already has a lot of bells and whistles. Numerous talented heals with cooldowns to heal the party. It felt a little bit daunting to try to make things better than they already were, but then I remembered that upgrades aren't just about adding cool new stuff. That's a priority to be sure, but the semi-borrowed power upgrades as a whole are also about giving the player choices for strategic trade-offs and improvements to quality of life, depending on which upgrades they equip. With that context in mind, Wandering Shower was the first thing that occurred to me. It allows the healing area of Healing Rain to move if it's necessary. I haven't yet added any other trade-offs or buffs or nerfs to it. There's a lot of possibilities. Amount healed, duration, number of targets it can heal per tick, etc. I think I'll wait on feedback before I decide what trade-offs I'll add to it, or buffs or nerfs for that matter. Some upgrades are trade-offs and some are just plain buffs that add flavor or capabilities. Tributary was a trade-off with Chain Heal. Since talents and passives could alter how many allies it chains to, I couldn't really change how it works that much. Until I realized I could give it a cooldown and make it more powerful for having one. Not to mention, for all the group healing abilities that Shaman have, they don't have very many tools that work well if targets aren't grouped. So I threw in the longer range on the chaining as a way of covering that weakness to make it more appealing. Honestly, I envy Shaman's group healing with no cooldown. I had one once with Holy Radiance, and I even had that unpruned as part of Holy's changes when I did Holy's upgrades. That doesn't mean the trade-off of a cooldown for more healing isn't necessarily an appealing trade-off, though. Plus, with upgrades, the player decides which upgrades they'll have, and they can swap them out anytime they're out of combat, too. Now, I noticed that none of the big cooldowns Restoration Shaman have actually boost their single target healing. You've got some good ones, but none like that. So I decided that swapping out a movement one for a power one might be a good prospect, though I worry that forcing a Restoration Shaman to choose to forego a utility cooldown for a power cooldown, or for that matter a power cooldown for a utility cooldown, is giving them a bad choice to make. Like, if there were a movement-heavy fight, it might feel like a tax for requiring them to not use a power cooldown and use a movement cooldown instead. Then again, in a movement-heavy fight, a movement cooldown de facto is a power cooldown, since a healer who can heal while moving is going to be more powerful than a healer who can't. I could really use feedback on this concept, which is true of the whole upgrade spread, of course. This is an aside, but I'm not going to lie, I really like the elemental rune icons. I've been using the ones that I can whenever I can, and that's why I picked this icon for Spirit Walker's Determination. Anyhow, Telluric Shield is another trade-off. Fewer charges and less healing boost for one more target that you cast it on. There's really not that much more to it than that. I decided to remove the amount of the healing boost because, well, when Blizzard did something similar to this with Holy Paladins, giving us a talent that lets us beacon 2 targets instead of 1, they reduced the healing copy effect a bit to compensate. I figured this was similar. And now I finally got a chance to sneak in Water Shock. Yes! This is kind of a consolation prize for taking away the mobility. Water Shock is an instant, though small, heal. You can use it for damage too, though considering you're going to be using this during downtime when you'd normally use Healing Wave, maybe it's not really all that interesting at all. Too bad. With a name like Water Shock, you'd think it would be awesome. Though, shoot, if I buffed it so that it wasn't so much about small healing and was instead a burstier instant single target heal on a cooldown, would that be better? Conductive Bolt is kind of a revival of an older Shaman talent that let them heal targets in their healing rain whenever they cast Lightning Bolt. If I've attached this mini atonement mechanic to too many heal over time effects, please do let me know. Plus, the bolt can be a new and good-looking projectile, and getting a new spell effect and a new animation, new projectiles, all of that are a big part of the reason why I'm designing the upgrade system in the first place. Plus, well, I keep modifying abilities so that they have new types of damage attached to them, and something needed to blend Frost and Nature damage. And bizarrely, nothing in the other kits did. Maybe I'll rename the Lightning Shock upgrade for Crash Lightning into something else, like Frost Storm Shock if Conductive Bolt gets booted out. Though, maybe it's petty of me to make it a goal to have every possible combination of 2 damage types in the game. Lightning Bolt Volley was me running out of ideas again. It'll at least have its uses while soloing and look cool while you're using it, and I consider soloing as a healing spec to be a legitimate use case for these upgrades, because I do it. And I can't gain 5 gems in Torghast as a result unless I pick one of those Mawhound pets. But it's still a legitimate use case. Now, when I started out with these upgrade concepts, I went ability by ability, not purpose by purpose, if you see what I mean. I asked myself, which abilities exist in this specs kit that I can give an upgrade to? And when I created upgrades based on which abilities I could upgrade, I often aimed for something that I thought looked or sounded cool. Almost always I wanted the upgraded ability to feel at least a little bit different from the original. Often I tried to create some kind of trade-off, making the upgrade situationally useful based on things like the number of targets affected or having a stronger effect with a longer cooldown, things like that. Rarely did I upgrade the same ability more than once for the same spec, but while I was putting together each spread of upgrades, what I didn't do, and what I probably should have done in retrospect, was to figure out what goals a player would have while they're looking at a list of upgrades, and then make sure upgrades exist in the spread that allow the player to pick upgrades that help them achieve those goals. In my next iteration, I plan to have that design goal in mind, to consider what the player wants to accomplish and how they could accomplish it with the upgrades. I strongly suspect that in this next iteration, there will be a lot more cases where I upgrade the same ability in 2 or more different ways. That will give players more options, and since that's going to be the goal with goal-oriented design, who knows? I might even have 3 different upgrades for the same ability in the end. However, I can do this much more effectively in an environment that has a great deal of feedback available, and that's where you come in. You have knowledge that comes from experience with these specs. I don't. I tried to do my research on Wowhead and Icy Veins for each spec, but inevitably there'll be things you know that I don't because you have experience that I don't have. You'll have more and better ideas than I could hope to have, and I know I need those, so please, let me know what you think of these upgrades and what better ideas you have for what to put in their places. Looking back on the number of abilities that I've upgraded, before I go patting myself on the back, I can't help but notice that I upgraded 3 heals, 3 damage abilities, and 1 cooldown. 2 of the 3 damage abilities I upgraded can help with healing, but should I have upgraded more heals? Should I have looked into a way of upgrading Healing Wave or Healing Surge somehow? Maybe given it a different school like I did for Natural Light for Paladins, like made a version of Frostmend for Restoration. Actually, I'm keeping that in my back pocket. Frostmend as an upgrade for Healing Surge, and it's considered a Frost School spell while the other healing spells are considered Nature School. And yeah, this is basically me cloning what I did for Paladins with the Natural Light spell, where Frostmend gains extra benefit from your mastery. I'm keeping it in my back pocket with the understanding I may put it in the 7 upgrades for Restoration later. If feedback tells me to do so, it'll be in Iteration 2. Heck, I can make Water Shock an upgrade for Healing Wave if that's what I'm told to do. As it is, if a player wanted to buff their multi-target healing, Tributary and Wandering Shower could help, and I suppose Conductive Bolt could help to an extent. Spirit Walker's Determination could also help with multi-target healing since it's a power cooldown and applies to basically all your healing. For single-target healing, there's very little here unless you count Spirit Walker's Determination. Water Shock, at least this version of it, barely counts since it's a downtime filler spell. I guess Conductive Bolt could help too, but again, Conductive Bolt is also a downtime filler spell. Yeah, there's definitely room for improvement here. I want to make Iteration 2 better than this. Let me know what I should boot out and what I should draw in. Whether Frostmend is an upgrade for Healing Surge and Water Shock is a powerful and efficient heal on a cooldown makes sense. Heck, if you've got more exciting ideas, which isn't a difficult feat, I have to admit, bring them on. If they're not overpowered or broken or can't work with talents or PvP talents, then in they come. I know I'm fallible, and the first iteration for Restoration is pretty lackluster, but hopefully there are enough ideas that look either brilliant or at least salvageable into something useful that this has piqued your interest. If nothing else, designing these upgrades has taught me that even one spell changing can completely change the feel and flow of a spec, so I really need to be careful, and I really need more eyes on what I'm doing too. Of course, I know Blizzard probably won't take many, or even any of these suggestions. Heck, they might even have something objectively better in store for us than the semi-borrowed power upgrade system that I've cooked up here. But knowing what gets players excited will be helpful to them even so. That is why I'm sacrificing so much of my free time and energy on Project Decade. And who knows? They might just need these ideas to get WoW going in the right direction. Heck, If this video series just gets the Blizzard developers into the habit of creating a blue post with the thinking in it that goes in depth enough for us to understand what they're doing and what their design goals are, then that would be a huge step forward. Even saying the thinking out loud is sometimes enough to get you a new perspective on what you're doing. Is it really what people want? Does it serve the purposes that it really should be serving in the end? Am I really doing something just to make a system look awesome instead of making the game overall better? What does it do for the fun factor? Am I making the mistake of prioritizing my design goals over the fun factor? Are my design goals the right design goals to have? Do my ideas match the spec's feel and flavor? Is it a net gain? Is it genuinely awesome? Things like that. Plus, we just plain need more communication from Blizzard. If Project Decade gets the development team into the habit of telling us the thinking for every change they make, then the whole project will have been worth it, even if they don't take a single suggestion. Again, if you see something you don't like bad trade-offs or something you know is counterproductive or useless, or if you've thought of an idea that's better or cooler or more useful than mine, then don't hesitate to let me know. The more details you can provide about why you don't like it and what makes one of my ideas counterproductive or useless, or about why your idea is cooler or more useful than mine, the better. One of the main goals of Project Decade is to give whoever's in charge of class design and player power systems a good idea what appeals to players and what will actually get them excited to get back to WoW again. And the more you can say about the wherefore and the why, the better. I fully intend to iterate on this project and make changes in response to feedback. I know I'm going to make mistakes. Heck, I've already seen mistakes in some of the things that I've done. But if those mistakes generate the kind of discussion that Blizzard needs to hear, so much the better. Blizzard needs to see player engagement, humility, and feedback actually making change in action so they can start doing what needs to be done to turn WoW around. It can be done and it should be done. World of Warcraft can last another decade. So keep the feedback coming, folks. There's one last thing. I began working on Project Decade videos back in July, and considering how many months it has taken, the fact that there are 36 different sets of feedback to curate and compile, and multitudes of decisions to make based on feedback received, ideas others have come up with, and how to weave everything together into a fun, functional, and exciting whole, I don't have a chance in the tramaculum of getting this done in any reasonable length of time unless I get volunteers to help me curate and compile the feedback I'm getting. If you're willing to help curate feedback, please let me know. If I get enough interest, I will set up a Discord server where we can coordinate everything. Thank you in advance for your feedback and support. Let's make World of Warcraft the best game that it can be.